Hey, what's up, everybody? So I wanted to do a quick video. Recently, we had, have had a housemate relapse, and he has been kicked out, which is really unfortunate. You know, this isn't the first time this has happened in my 3 years of living here. But you know, it is always sad and unfortunate to see it happen, but you know, it does happen pretty frequently, or I shouldn't say frequently, but it's not rare. You know, it's like uncommon, I would say. But I wanted to talk about it, and I also want to kind of share my observations, not just with the recent housemate that's been that had relapsed and been kicked out, but in other housemates that I've kind of what I've observed, and you know, which kind of maybe led to a relapse and then them being kicked out. You know, I'm not saying like this is like completely factual, but you know, again, it's just my observations. I think it would be helpful to kind of share for those that are in early recovery themselves. So before I get into it, as always, if you guys like this video, please hit the like button. Please comment. I love reading everyone's comments, and I like to respond to them. Yeah, also subscribe if you're not, you know, subscribed on YouTube. That helps tremendously. If you're not like following on TikTok, that helps tremendously. I really appreciate everyone that does that. It helps kind of build this channel so I can share and reach more people. And if not, you know, that's cool too. I understand. I appreciate your viewership, nonetheless. So yeah, with this housemate, so for some context, he's been here, or he lived here for about a year and a half, give or take. Really friendly guy, really cool dude. His addiction was with alcohol. You know, he was an alcoholic, and this recent relapse is the third time he's relapsed since living in this house. For those that are familiar with Oxford housing, which is a type of recovery house, typically if you relapse, you're immediately kicked out. I think the rule is like you get 15 minutes to like gather up your stuff, and then you can come back at a later time when you're sober and get anything else that you couldn't take in that first 15 minutes. The recovery house that I live in is not an Oxford house. So here the rules are a little more lax, which I really like a lot. So there's no hard and fast rule, but typically, you know, provided, you know, the housemate's not like, you know, I guess toxic, so to speak, or just like not a good housemate. Normally, you know, they're not kicked out after the first relapse. But there is, and it varies person to person, but there is like, I guess, some conditions imposed upon them to continue living here. Like I said, it varies. So some people, you know, maybe if they had been clean for quite a while and living here for quite a while, and had like a very minor like lapse, maybe they might require them to like go to like 3 AA or NA meetings per week. Or some people might have to, you know, get into outpatient or spend, you know, like 3 days in detox. Or actually, that's kind of about it. That's about, and of course, if that person is like, no, I'm not doing that, then they get kicked out. But, you know, provided they do that, you know, they get to continue living here. So for the second relapse, and the house has kind of unanimously come to this conclusion, we are kind of at the point where a second relapse, and again, I don't know if this is like, you know, absolute, you know, maybe it might depend, like, you know, let's say I had relapsed like the first few months of living here, and then it's like 3 years later I relapse again. I think maybe then there might be some more like leeway, like, you know, this person's been sober for a few years living here, they had another, you know, slip, then But for the most part, after the second relapse, we are going to be like, that's it. Historically, once a person is kind of after their second relapse and continue living here, despite whatever interventions they might or conditions they place upon them, usually they end up relapsing a short time after that second one. And then 3 strikes is like definitely out. So we've kind of all decided, like, second relapse, no, we're like, you're done. Which, like, it sucks, it is sad and unfortunate, but ultimately we have to protect ourselves, protect our recovery. Anyone that comes into the house under the influence or has substances here in the house, that puts our recovery at risk. That can be pretty triggering for people, especially if the substances are in the house. And it's just disrespectful to everyone else. Like, we all understand, like, all of us have been there, done that. We have our history of relapses and lapses. So it's like, we're not judgmental, but at the end of the day, we have to protect ourselves. So but before we kind of came to that 2 strikes and you're out rule, this housemate that recently relapsed and got kicked out, well, actually, we've had 2. I guess maybe I'll briefly talk about the other one. But for his second relapse, they had him go to 30 days of inpatient. Especially, I don't know the full details, but I think he had been drinking, like, secretly for like a week or 2. Like, it wasn't just like a one-day thing. He was apparently in pretty rough shape, like detoxing. So they had him go to 30 days of inpatient, which he supposedly did. It's a little tricky because, so with this house, we're not like democratically run like Oxford houses are. Instead, we're kind of managed by an organization here that has like a facility for outpatient and inpatient services. And then they run a men's recovery house where I live, and they also run a women's recovery house where I don't live, obviously. So ultimately, like, there's a house supervisor here, which, he does a great job of like managing, like, stuff like in-house, but of course stuff like this goes above him. So we never like saw paperwork that like showed like completion of 30 days. We just assumed, like, since he's back, he just showed up. There's like no announcement or anything. He just showed up one day, and everyone's like, oh, okay, I guess he's done with treatment. If he's here and living here, then I guess he cleared it with the house manager higher up, even though we never saw his paperwork. And what was odd too is, like, in the 30 days he was out, he would occasionally get packages. So it's just like, it's just weird. It's like, was he like not in treatment and ordering stuff? Or was he in treatment and like had access to something like a computer or phone, which typically you don't, and ordering stuff? Like, I don't know, like, was there like a backlog of stuff? It was just kind of a little weird. And then also just him showing up was like kind of a little weird. But we're all like, okay, well, we'll take it in good faith. So that was, he came back like 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago. It's kind of hard to say. It's, time's just flying by. Like, it's already, I can't believe it's already May. We're almost halfway through 2025. But it wasn't too long ago when he came back, and I think it was 3 days ago, 4 days ago, he had come back home drunk in the morning, which we reported it to the house supervisor, and they let the people above him, the house and manager, know, and so of course gave him a 72-hour notice to vacate, which he has left. He did leave pretty quickly. He has a lot of stuff here, so he's got to come back and get it. of course, when he's not under the influence. Yeah, it wasn't very long. And so with that context, I kind of want to just talk about like my observations. Again, I don't think this is like absolutely true or like, applies for everyone, but I think like from my observations, not just with this housemate, but other housemates and also my personal experiences, I think it applies for a good amount of people. So I think one factor that kind of influenced his second and third relapse was a lack of change, especially lifestyle change. I don't know why they let him kind of do it, but he like really dragged his feet. He said he was having a hard time getting into treatment, but usually it's not that, doesn't take like months, because they wanted him to do outpatient for the first relapse, and it had taken him quite a while, like over a month, to get into outpatient, which I'm surprised they let that slide. But so it's like he wasn't making the changes and doing the things he was, he should have been doing, or like would have been beneficial. Of course, going to outpatient doesn't immediately prevent you or from relapsing again, but it can be helpful. And I think most importantly, it's that accountability, realizing like, hey, like, yeah, I screwed up, and I'm going to take some steps to work on this, versus just like dicking around and not doing anything. I say all these observations like with no judgment, but I guess I will be like pretty blunt with it. So I think that like really didn't help. And then after his second relapse, again, we don't even 100% know he even went to inpatient, but assuming he did, I think he also was dragging his feet on doing outpatient, because he was supposed to do outpatient after inpatient for the second time, which he delayed on. So yeah, that was just one like example of like a lack of change, because my philosophy or my thought process is like with there's a difference between sobriety and recovery. Sobriety is just the absence of using or drinking, whereas recovery is more than that. Like it's a lifestyle. So it's not just abstaining, it's making positive changes in your life, and continuing to like learn and grow. Whereas sobriety, you're kind of just like white knuckling it and just hoping for the best, and that's so difficult to do, because I really feel that you have to fill that void with something. You can't just quit something that you had been doing for so long and like had such a powerful influence on you, and not fill that hole with anything. So that kind of leads to another example. Like he went back into his same routine after both relapses, and so like went back to working at the same place, which he really disliked. Went back to just like honestly not really doing too much, like working, and then I think he went to like a few meetings a week, and that's about it, honestly. Otherwise, just like, well, I think he spent a good amount of time at his parents', so I don't know what he would do at his parents', but supposedly like help them out with like yard work and stuff like that. But it just sounded like he was just doing what he was doing before, so it's like not really surprising, that he had relapsed. What was I gonna say? Sorry, I heard some noise outside. I got distracted. But yeah, just like going back to his old routine and not really making any changes. And then like I had tried to encourage him several times to like pick up a hobby or like do something, like especially like weightlifting. I really feel like, you know, if he had gotten into the gym and started weightlifting, that could have been helpful. Again, it wouldn't, you know, been like a 100% foolproof, you know, preventative, but I think that would have really helped. And with that too, like he would agree and be like, yeah, you know, I need to get in shape. And I feel like the benefits are like like, you know, it's more than just like getting in like better shape and like fitness. You know, it's improving your physical health, it's improving your mental health, it's improving your self-esteem. It's giving you like endorphins. You know, like I really feel like it helps heal the brain and the body. By being consistent with exercise, gives you something to do. It gives you goals to work on, like, hey, I'm gonna get this much stronger, or I'm gonna lose this much weight, or both, or, you know, several goals. So I feel like it like really adds a lot of purpose. And again, I recognize that's maybe not gonna be the case for absolutely everyone, but I really do feel that most people could benefit from exercise. And if not that, you know, again, anything else, like going out walking every day, or, you know, I don't know, I'm trying to think of other hobbies. Pick up hobbies like drawing or painting, pottery work, you know, working with clay, trying to find like groups or clubs of people to do things with. You know, try to connect with your recovery community and see if like they host any like sober events. You know, I used to go to like sober volleyball and sober dodgeball events, which were really fun. Great way to meet people. But yeah, you know, he didn't do any of that and just stuck with his old routine, and I think that made it a lot more difficult to be successful. And then also, you know, the social aspect, like it didn't really seem like he made any social connections. I think, you know, just being social is a really big part of recovery. I think it's a lot more difficult to be successful in recovery on your own. I think it's very helpful to, you know, connect with people that will support you in your recovery, like especially people that either don't actively use, and especially people that have used, that have been addicts or alcoholics and are in recovery themselves, because, you know, they'll understand more of what you're going through and most likely provide more empathy and be more supportive. But I think regardless, it's just important to make friends and connections with people that will, you know, healthy relationships with people. And it didn't seem like he really did any of that. Sorry, my monitor turned off. I always forget to do that, to shake the mouse so it doesn't, gives me like some backlight. Yeah, it sounded like he really didn't like enjoy going to the meetings. Like he would normally negatively talk about like AA and like how they like bitch and moan and stuff like that. And it's like, you know, I've been to, you know, meetings like that where it's like, seems more on the negative side, but it's like, you know, that's just that group. You know, it's like, keep looking, you know, keep going to different groups. You know, you'll find a group that, you know, fits your vibe and what you're looking for. But he just seemed to kind of like write off the whole thing, which also makes it more difficult to be social, you know. So it's like, you know, he was pretty isolated other than his parents and us in the house. I don't think he really had like any friends or like anyone to like do stuff with or talk to, you know, because I think it's especially important to have people in your life that like will actively listen. Like I think that's one thing that is helpful that I've observed and been told from, you know, working with peers, you know, my recoveries, that it's just nice to have someone to talk to like once a week for like an hour and like have them actively listen. It's nice to be actively heard. And just like, I don't know, I feel like talking, that's why I like doing these videos too, is like, it's just nice to talk, even if it's like not technically to anyone directly, but knowing like it's out there for anyone on the internet to see and hear. Sorry, I was a little thirsty. For me, it just, I don't know, it's like cathartic. You know, it's just a good way to kind of get thoughts and feelings out. And so yeah, I think that, you know, continued social isolism also contributed. And then what I mentioned with the groups, I think also his just like his attitude, very negative, not just with like groups, but just kind of everything. And I know that's so difficult to like break out of that negativity. It's so easy to just like become fixated on just like everything that's like sucks in life. You know, it's like, you know, the current kind of status of America and the political system, like, it's crazy, dude. Like, it sucks. There's just so much crappiness going on. You know, looking at your life, it's like, you know, oh, I share a house with like 5 other guys. I don't have my own place. I work like a job that I dislike. I don't have any meaningful connections. You know, I'm fat and out of shape. Like, you know, it's just so easy to focus on those. And so I think, you know, like, it would have been helpful for him to maybe like recognize that. And I think maybe part of it was just like lack of insight, of like not knowing like how negative his thought process was. And, you know, so I think like trying to work on that and practicing gratitude, for me, practicing gratitude is incredibly helpful. And it doesn't have to be like a gratitude list. It doesn't have to be like this activity you do, but I like to just remind myself things that I'm grateful for throughout the day, especially when I wake up in the morning and like go to bed. It's a good time, you know, it's like your brain is like waking up or winding down, and it's just good to remind yourself of, you know, all the positive, all the good things you have in your life. So I think, you know, if he had done stuff like that, practicing gratitude, that would have been helpful. And again, with all this stuff, it's like, you know, each one of these, or even all of them together, still isn't like foolproof. It's not going to like prevent you from relapsing. It's not going to guarantee, you know, successful recovery. But, you know, I think had he addressed each of those aspects, it would have greatly increased his success rate for recovery. And it's just so sad because he also, I had talked with him briefly before he left, and he's had a lot of tragic events going on in his life, and apparently he had showed up drunk to work and got fired. Now he's losing his housing, you know, here. So, you know, he's going to be in a really dark spot, really like rock bottom. You know, I don't like the word rock bottom because I always feel like it can always get worse. I know maybe that's a negative thinking, but like I really feel, well, also it's like I feel like you shouldn't have to wait to hit rock bottom to like make changes. Again, because like it always gets worse. It can always get worse, you know. You know, hit by a car and like, you know, end up having your legs amputated. You know, that's another rock bottom. With my experience, you know, it's just like lost my job, rock bottom. Horrible arrest with the police, rock bottom. Nerve damage, couldn't walk, rock bottom. Lost my car, or DUI, rock bottom. Lost my car, rock bottom. Lost my apartment, rock bottom, you know. So yeah, I don't know, it's just really sad. But yeah, those are my observations, and I guess I'm gonna kind of maybe cut this short soon because, well, especially I gotta start getting ready for the gym. But you know, that kind of applies for a lot of the other housemates too. It's just like, you know, this, just to sum it up, I think the inaction or putting stuff off till later, I think can be extremely poisonous, or detrimental. And I know it's like, it's hard to like make changes, especially lifestyle changes, like, and do it like immediately. But I think that's so important because otherwise it's like, well, you know, I'll get a gym membership tomorrow or next week. and then tomorrow and next week comes and you're like, I'm gonna wait longer. And it's like, had you started now, you could have already been involved in it and getting those benefits. Because I really do feel like if he had like started making positive changes, lifestyle changes, after both of his relapses, I think that would have really helped him a lot. But you know, I just went back to the same routine, and it's like, it's hard, you know, especially like just on like a neural pathway level. Like, you slip into the same old routine in life that you had when you were using, and you know, your brain's gonna like be like, recognize that and be like, oh well, hey, same pattern, same routine, what's missing? Oh yeah, drinking, let's do that, you know. Whereas if you like totally change things up, and it doesn't, not even necessarily totally, but like make changes, then it's like your brain's like, oh okay, this is kind of new, you know. It's like not drinking or not using, that's new. Oh hey, like having healthy friendships, that's new. Having like hobbies, you know, weightlifting, that's new. And it's like, oh, you know, new environment. So it's like, yeah, let's stick with this new thing of not drinking, or I don't know. I just feel like it makes it easier. It's just so easy to fall back into old habits and routines and just like completely revert. But yeah, I really wish him well. I really hope that, you know, maybe this is a final wake-up call for him, because he's a good guy. You know, he was a good housemate, very friendly, and you know, it is really tragic to see it happen. But again, like I said, at the end of the day, we have to also consider our recoveries. You know, it's that like good selfishness. You know, put your mask on first before you put on the other person's mask. So yeah, I really truly wish him well. And yeah, hopefully this video, I don't know, maybe helpful or insightful for some people. You know, hopefully the takeaway is, you know, start making some lifestyle changes. Don't just not drink and not use, like make some other changes. Like take some time and think about what you want to pursue. Like, what are some of your dreams and goals? Like, you know, now that you have this time, money, and energy that you spent drinking and using, like invest it somewhere else. You know, like what can you invest it in? I think it's just, you're not doing yourself any favors by just not doing anything, because then you have all this time, money, and energy just like building, and it's like it's gonna go towards the path of least resistance, which is using. It's like you used and drank for so long, it's like that's what your brain knows. So it's like, but if you can start redirecting that, you know, I feel like it makes it easier. And you know, it's just nice. It's just like, that's how you get the things you want in life, and like, you know, how you build a strong recovery and like build a great life. You know, it doesn't happen automatically, it doesn't happen without effort. You know, it takes time, it takes work. And I feel like the sooner you start, the sooner you can start getting those benefits. And the sooner you start, the less your risk is of relapse, of going back to that old lifestyle. So yeah, hopefully that's a takeaway. Or, you know, I guess, yeah, you know, drop a comment if you guys have any other takeaways. Like, you know, please share those. I'd love to hear. You know, maybe you took something else away from this. Please comment if you have any stories or like anything that you feel like to add that I like missed that might be helpful for recovery. Yeah, we're gonna end it here so I can go to the gym. So thank you guys for watching. I will see you guys next time.